The Xiangyun silk father, just brought back, was sent to Aunt Song's room again. Mother didn't say a single word, but only hid away and cried the whole night. I ran over to demand justice for her, only to be slapped by father until my vision went dark. When I woke up, mother was sitting by the bed with red-rimmed eyes.
Silly girl. Don't talk back to your father anymore.
How could I not? If I don't fight for us, the charcoal in winter, the ice in summer, the tutor for my younger sister and me, and even mother's medicine will all be gone. They had always been weak, and when wronged, they would only hold me and cry. So I continued to charge ahead at the very front. Kneeling in the ancestral hall and being scolded had long become part of daily life, until the Pei family sent matchmakers to propose marriage. Mother flusteredly pulled me aside to discuss it.
The third young master of the Pei family has a terrible temper. Wu is so gentle and yielding. If she really marries into that family, I'm afraid she won't survive it.
I nodded instinctively. Then mother should just decline the lady's offer.
But if we offend the Pei estate, your father will blame me again for not managing the household well.
After a long silence, seeing that I still didn't respond, mother gritted her teeth and spoke. My lady.
Ah Shu, how about you marry him instead?
I snapped my head up, feeling as if my heart had been fiercely wrung. I looked up at mother, unable to recover my senses for a long time. As if eager to convince me, she kept muttering and rambling, but my head was spinning, and not a single word she said entered my ears.
Ah Shu, you've been sensible since you were a child, and you have a strong character. If you marry into that family, it would be far more suitable than Wu. With her gentle temperament, she would be pushed around with no room to breathe.
Looking at mother pacing back and forth in anxiety, for the first time, I felt all of this was incredibly absurd. All these years, father favored concubine Song. Whenever there were good things in the household, they would eventually end up in Hungwu court. Even when concubine Song flaunted and provoked her to her face, mother always kept her head down in silence. Father had once asked her, half as a warning and half as a test. Mother bowed gently and said,
Master, you are the master of this household. I am incompetent and failed to bear you a legitimate son. How can I have any right to complain? No matter how you arrange things, I am willing to obey.
Only then did father offer her a slight smile, patting her hand in satisfaction, and continued to pamper concubine Song. But I knew mother was suffering inside, because she would always hold my sister and me, weeping in the dead of night. Time and again, she knelt before the bodhisattva, pouring out her grievances and bitterness. I believed her. So I fought, I demanded, and I cried to father about how difficult life was in the main courtyard. I became the most disruptive person in this family. Time after time, the cane fell on me, and time after time, I was forced to kneel in punishment. Yet, I never bowed my head. I thought as long as I protected mother and my sister, and the three of us could live a stable life, it would be enough. But today, my chest felt as if it were stuffed with a cold stone. For the first time, I looked at mother closely. Mother, if you are truly afraid of offending the Pei family, Meng Shiran, born to concubine Song, happens to be of age too. The Pei family has deep roots in Huzhou. Now that the eldest son of the Pei family has passed the imperial exam as Manhwa, rising to prominence overnight, the Pei family's social standing rose as well, and the number of people wanting to curry favor with them is countless. If it weren't for the fact that the third young master of the Pei family has had a strange illness since childhood and has an unpredictable temper, such a marriage would never fall to a declined family like the Mengs. Mother's brow furrowed, her fingertips clutching her handkerchief tightly.
But I have met that third young master Pei. The maids and older servants in his courtyard are often treated terribly. That woman Song Qingshuang, how could she let her own daughter go and suffer like that? When the time comes, she will cry a few times in front of your father, and who knows how much your father will blame me.
My heart suddenly tightened, making it almost impossible to breathe. So she knew even better than I did exactly what kind of person Pei Feng was. Mother's eyes grew red, and she stepped forward to take my hand.
Ah Shu, you are my own daughter, the flesh of my flesh. How could I really bear to let you suffer?
A pang of sadness hit me. Indeed, all these years, the three of us, mother and daughters, have always depended on each other. Only we ourselves know how we survived these days. Mother hung her head, and I could even see a few strands of white hair appearing at her temples.
But Ah Shu, young Master Pei has passed the imperial exam as the third-place graduate and will soon take up his post. With a family status like the Pei's, we absolutely cannot afford to offend them.
My fingertips grew cold, and most of my heart went cold too. So mother, you still want me to marry him? Her eyes were full of guilt and pity as she looked at me, but she suddenly fell to her knees before me.
Ah Shu, you can't just watch Wu suffer. Just think of it as mother begging you. Shield her this one more time.
Mother cried out in a high, pleading voice. My head buzzed and went tight. How could she kneel right there in front of me? With stiff hands, I reached out to help her up, but she absolutely refused to rise.
You have been strong and sturdy since you were a child, and you have a tough temperament. If you marry into that house, at least you will be able to protect yourself.
My hands froze in mid-air as I was helping her. Strong since I was a child. My heart shuddered violently. Waves of bitterness surged up within me. The cold wind from the courtyard poured into the room, chilling me to the very bone. I'm not marrying him. Leaving those words behind, I turned and rushed out of the Hmong Manor, my eyes burning fiercely, and tears kept welling up inside them. All these years, I was like a mother hen protecting her chicks, bristling with sharp thorns against my father and Auntie Song. My father ignored my grandmother's objections and insisted on letting Auntie Song manage the household affairs. In the winter, my mother and sister shivered from the cold, and even their bedding was damp and freezing. I went and snatched back several baskets of silver charcoal, and even got into a physical scuffle with the managing maid from Concubine Song's courtyard. Father punished me by making me kneel in the snow for a full 2 hours. Later, I was frozen like a block of ice. Mother and sister wrapped me in the quilt, their tears falling drop by drop. My sister cried and said to me,
"Sister, I will protect you from now on."
The chilblains on my hands and feet were painful and itchy, but back then, I only thought that at least we mother and daughters would survive the winter. Only today did I finally understand that it was simply because I was tough and could endure the hardships. Somewhere in my heart suddenly felt tight and bitter. I stopped in my tracks, my vision blurred by tears. Just as I turned my head, I bumped right into someone, completely caught off guard.
Which family's lady are you, daring to bump into our master? Do you have any idea who he is?
Ah Fu, do not be rude.
A clear, gentle, and pleasant voice interrupted him. I looked up. The man before me was elegant, calm, and bore an extraordinary air. His chin had been knocked red by my impact, yet he asked me instead,
Miss Hmong, did that hurt you?
I took a wary step back. How do you know my last name is Hmong? He opened his mouth, seemingly wanting to explain something, but in the end, he only gave a helpless smile, his eyes as gentle as a pool of spring water.
Did you not just run out of the Hmong estate? Who in the city doesn't know that the eldest daughter of the Hmong family is bright and lively and runs like a gust of wind?
I looked back at the vermilion gates, the chill in my heart growing even deeper. I pushed him aside testily. If nothing is wrong, then don't block my way. He was not angered, only looking at me with great interest.
My surname is Pei.
Why is it someone named Pei again? I shouted out subconsciously, glaring at him fiercely, but he froze on the spot, staring straight at me. My heart suddenly skipped a beat, and flushed with embarrassment and anger, I turned and walked away.
Though I do not know what difficulties you have encountered.
He suddenly took a few quick steps to catch up, his voice neither too loud nor too soft.
The impact when you ran into me just now carried quite some strength. Such a strong spine should not be used to suffer in silence.
The light, casual remark struck my heart like a clap of thunder. Ripple after ripple stirred within me, and even the bitterness seemed to gradually dissolve. When my tears began to fall, I did not even notice it myself. As he said those words, he seemed to have thought of something, his expression turning slightly distant. I did not answer. I only raised my hand to wipe away my tears, and bolted forward. I ran for a very long time, not stopping until I reached the lakeside, gasping heavily for air. The stinging pain in my throat kept surging up, carrying with it the frustration and grievance in my heart that came flooding in overwhelmingly. I squatted down and hugged my legs tightly, burying my face deeply within them. I didn't want anyone to see me cry, yet my shoulders still shook violently. Mother's words were indeed cruel, but my little sister, that little toddler who had been protected behind my back since childhood, reaching out her tiny hands to apply medicine for me. She depended on me and trusted me and even adored me.
"Sister, as long as you are here."
A Wu is not afraid of anything. Willow catkins drifted down and landed in my hair. I looked at my reflection in the lake's surface, and those scenes in my memory kept churning. Mother came from a merchant family, which was not considered respectable in father's eyes. She became the primary wife, relying on her generous dowry. But father, as it turned out, had Aunt Song as his beloved darling. Mother was bent on being a virtuous and magnanimous wife, handing over all her lands and shops to father. So, for as long as I could remember, there was never a time when the main courtyard wasn't lacking something. Every time I came back from being punished, mother would hold me with heartache.
Oh, you. How much are you going to suffer in the future with this temperament? Can't you be a bit more gentle and yielding? They are just worldly possessions anyway. If you just yield a little, it will pass.
She said so, but when she saw the hairpin I snatched back from Aunt Song's hands, she was still gratified and moved, caressing it over and over again.
Good Ah Shu, mother's good Ah Shu. This is the dowry your grandfather gave to me.
so I always thought I was doing the right thing. Even if the way father looked at me was extremely complicated, even if Aunt Song's eyes were full of ridicule, I still stubbornly believed that at least I had protected the person who mattered most. I stood up and headed back to the manor. I still needed to have another talk with mother. Rejecting the PA family wasn't the end of the world. The future of my younger sister and me should not be given away so easily. But if it really came to the point where someone had to go, then I would rather that person be me. By the time I returned to the manor, night had fallen. The lights in the main courtyard had not yet been lit. The corridor was pitch black, with only a sliver of dim yellow light coming from my sister's room. I pushed the door open and walked in. She was sitting under the lamp, embroidering. Her eyes lit up when she saw me.
Sister, you're back.
I sat down across from her, trying my best to keep my voice steady. "Oh woo, I have something to tell you." She nodded, set her embroidery hoop aside, and looked at me attentively. I took a deep breath. I told her mother's plan in its entirety. Pei Sanlang's bad reputation, how we couldn't afford to offend the Pei family, and how mother had knelt and begged me. I told her everything. "Don't be afraid of this," I said, holding her hand, trying to keep my tone light. "I've thought it through. With Pei Sanlang's reputation, no decent family in the city is willing to marry their daughter to him. Our refusal wouldn't be considered ungrateful. Mother is just too weak. She is afraid of everything. We cannot listen to her on everything. If we back down this time, it will only get harder in the future." She lowered her head and did not respond to my words. The lamplight fell on her face. Her eyelashes cast a small shadow, and I couldn't quite make out her expression. "Ah woo." I gently nudged her. She finally spoke, her voice as soft as a mosquito's hum.
I will do whatever mother says.
I was stunned. My hand slipped off the back of her hand. I furrowed my brow, a wave of exhaustion washing over me. "Ah woo, do you know what kind of man the third young Master Pei is? The maidservants in his courtyard have been horribly abused by him." Her face turned pale, and she looked up at me with unease.
But if we offend the Pei family, it will anger father. Our lives won't be easy either.
I recalled the past. Sometimes the main courtyard did not even have enough food. My younger sister and I could not control the servants in the courtyard, and mother fell ill in bed. We had even secretly gone to Hengwu Garden to take things. My heart ached as I pulled her into an embrace, gently patting her back. "Ah woo, don't be afraid. We have already grown up. If we stand firm this time, things will get better in the future. At worst, father will just throw a tantrum. We survived such hard times in the past. What is there to fear?" The air seemed frozen, quiet, and chilly. She still did not answer. Her silence was more piercing than any words. I stared into her eyes, waiting for her to give me an answer.
Sister,
She finally spoke, but avoided my gaze.
just do as mother said.
I stood rooted to the spot. "What did you say?" She looked up, her lips trembling.
Sister, let's not make a fuss anymore. Mother hasn't had it easy either.
"What do you mean, not make a fuss?" I stared at her, suddenly finding her frighteningly unfamiliar. "I know mother hasn't had it easy, but no matter which one of us marries him, won't we just be pushed into a life of misery?" A sudden bad premonition rose in my heart. I looked up at her. "Ah woo, do you also think I should be the one to marry Pei Feng?" My younger sister's eyes welled up with tears. She looked up at me, just as she had done countless times when we were children. She looked panicked and aggrieved, like a startled little rabbit.
I'm sorry, sister. It is just that my health is so weak. I really can't endure it. I wanted to go in your place too, but sister.
My heart sank to the very bottom in an instant. I stared blankly at my fragile sister before me. This was the person I had protected for so many years. This was my own sister, for whom I had stood up again and again, taking punishments in her stead. "Sister, I will protect you from now on." Those words echoed in my mind, feeling incredibly bleak and ironic. I suddenly smiled, but the smile looked worse than crying. My sister didn't cry anymore, nor would she look me in the eye. She didn't even seem to intend to explain further, not offering even a single word of fake comfort. Nothing. She just lowered her head, twisting her handkerchief, as if idly counting the cracks between the floor tiles. Suddenly, I grabbed her hand and started walking out.
Sister, where are we going?
To make things clear with mother, didn't you say you wanted to go in my place? You're just physically weak, just like I used to be. Once you endure it a few more times, you'll toughen up. Awu's face turned frighteningly pale in an instant. She burst out with far more strength than usual, pushing me away, desperately.
Don't, sister. I beg of you. I won't go. Please spare me.
I ignored her and insisted on dragging her to make good on her words just now. She clung to the doorframe with all her might.
Sister, you are so strong. Even if she torments you, nothing bad will easily happen to you. But I can't do it. I really can't take it.
Just say what? I looked back at her in disbelief. The moment her eyes met mine, as if scalded, she lowered her head. I almost laughed out loud. Staring at her, I said word by word, "Years ago, when Mung Jin pushed you into the lake, mother did nothing but cry. It was me, your sister, who pulled you out and made sure Mung Jin never dared to bully you again. That day, father whipped me with a cane until I could barely get out of bed." Her eyes turned red, filled with both guilt and heartache.
Stop it, sister. Please stop talking.
I let out a cold laugh. "Mung Woo, you make me feel like protecting you all these years has been a joke." As soon as she finished speaking, a heavy slap caught me completely off guard. The room fell into a terrifying silence. I slowly raised my head and saw mother staring blankly at her own hand. My face burned with pain. The corner of my mouth was probably cut, as a metallic taste spread across the tip of my tongue.
Ah Shu.
Mother's lips parted slightly, her voice a bit raspy. My sister stepped forward to support her.
Mother, why did you suddenly hit sister?
Mother's fingertips were still trembling, but the bewilderment on her face quickly vanished, replaced by anger. Mother's voice suddenly rose in pitch.
Who is she to say such heartless things? To get her to agree to marry him. I even got down on my knees and begged her. And the result? She still wanted to drag you into this. Does she have any respect for me as her mother?
I nudged the numb corner of my mouth with my tongue, then turned back to glare at her. My sister rubbed mother's back to soothe her, while looking back at me.
Sister, mother is already so angry. Apologize to her first.
Mother looked at me too, a rare severity in her eyes, because usually, she was always gentle and submissive. She was like this toward concubine Song, and also toward father, soft-spoken and never arguing. I looked at her and suddenly asked, "When you knelt before me just now, was it out of genuine guilt? Were you truly begging me? Or had you calculated long ago that if you knelt, I would surely soften my heart?" She opened her mouth but could not utter a single word. Her silence was the clearest answer. I let out a cold laugh. Apologize? Why on earth should I apologize? A mother kneeling to her daughter will cut my life short. What kind of intentions did you have? I haven't even asked that yet. Mother's lips turned slightly pale. She probably really hadn't thought that far ahead. She was only used to lowering her stance to force me to do her bidding. Mother's face changed and her lips trembled.
What kind of intentions? I did this for your own good. A family of the Pei family's stature. Marrying into it means a life of ease.
Then let a Wu go and live that life of ease.
Sister,
My sister finally burst into tears.
how can you say that, sister?
I looked at her. How is it? Are you not willing to live a good life? Or do you just look down on mother's arrangement? My sister's crying suddenly choked up. She opened her mouth but could not utter a single word. Mother took a step forward, shielding my sister behind her, her face finally turning cold.
Enough, Ah Shu. I know you are displeased in your heart, but this matter is already settled.
She took a card out from her sleeve with gold lettering on a red background. It stung my eyes.
I have already made the decision for you, and the marriage cards have been exchanged. As things stand now, you must accept it whether you want to or not. Even if you don't,
She paused for a moment, as if to summon her courage.
you still have to accept it.
The room fell completely silent. Only mother's rapid breathing remained, sounding very heavy. Suddenly, I felt very tired. I looked at my sister. She isn't surprised in the slightest, so she must have known all along. My heart is like a piece of deadwood, so cold that not a trace of life remains. Mother. My voice was very soft, so soft that even I found it unfamiliar. All these years, father gave you the cold shoulder. Concubine Song bullied you, and all you could do was cry and beg the bodhisattva. She froze. Her fingertips gripped the marriage certificate tightly. Erlang. But all these years, the one truly shielding you from the front, it was me. It wasn't the bodhisattva. Her lips trembled.
Ah Shu. You, how can? Did I say something wrong?
I took a step forward. She instinctively took half a step back, but then forced herself to stand her ground, shouting at me stubbornly.
Do you have no respect for your elders anymore? I am your mother.
I suddenly smiled. Stepping forward, I gripped her hand tightly. Every time you begged me, you would cry and say you had no other choice. But when did you ever actually try to find a way? You had no way to deal with concubine Song, and no way to deal with father. Yet when it comes to me, you seem to have plenty of ways.
Shut up.
Mother violently shook off my hand. Her voice turned sharp and shrill, and her eyes rimmed with red.
What do you know? Do you think I don't feel for you? But what did you want me to do? Your father favors that woman. I live worse than a servant in this household. Do you know the Luksong Chingshuang forgives me every single time?
Then did you dare to slap her back? I interrupted her with a cold sneer. Her mouth fell open, as if something were blocking her throat. You didn't dare. I finished the sentence for her. You didn't dare to touch concubine Song. You didn't dare to upset father. And you didn't dare to offend the Pei family. You only dared to take it out on me. Her face slowly turned pale, looking at the fine lines at the corners of her eyes. I recalled when I had a high fever as a child. She had sat by my bedside, weeping and saying,
Ah Shu, please get well soon.
Back then, I believed that she loved me, but the love she gave me was simply far too cheap. I turned and pushed open the door. The courtyard was pitch black, and the cold wind rushed in, making the lanterns under the corridor sway back and forth. Mother's wails erupted behind me, just like her countless hushed whimpers from before. My younger sister hurriedly went to comfort her, but this time, I would not let my heart soften again. The night wind slipped into my sleeves, making me shiver with cold. My footsteps paused slightly, and then I continued walking forward, never looking back. The next day, I went to the Pei Manor. Upon hearing that the visitor was a daughter of the Meng family, the madam made me wait in the main hall for a full 2 hours. As soon as she entered, she saw me sitting in a chair, leisurely sipping tea. I had even picked the most exquisite pastries to eat, and was chatting with a maid about how nice the screen in the hall was. Her face immediately changed. I glanced at her, but did not stand up.
Is this how your mother teaches her daughter? When an elder arrives, you do not even know to stand and greet them.
The madam's face darkened, her voice ringing with authority.
When you marry into the Pei Manor in the future, if you dare to be this undisciplined, be prepared to face family punishment.
My fingertips tapped on the table, showing not a shred of fear. You must be joking, madam. I have never seen a family of high standing leave a guest stranded in the hall for 2 hours. Since you yourself care nothing for propriety, why should I bother with rules? Her face instantly turned livid, and she pointed at me, speechless for a long moment. The maids in the hall all lowered their heads, not daring to breathe loudly. I stood up, and I came today to call off the engagement. I will not be marrying into the Pei Manor, so naturally, I won't have the chance to experience your family punishment. The main hall fell into a sudden silence. The maids all widened their eyes, looking at me as if I were a madwoman, and no wonder. What decent young lady would come to call off an engagement herself? The madam was also stunned.
You come to call off the engagement today, but have you asked your parents what they think? Only yesterday, your mother was eagerly expressing her gratitude, saying that to marry into the Pei family is a blessing she must have cultivated over several lifetimes. The two of you, mother and daughter, clearly haven't even talked this through yet.
The female relatives of the Pei family who had come with her all looked me up and down, whispering among themselves. The servants in the courtyard also slowed down their work, pricking up their ears to catch what was going on. Madam, I tried my best to keep my voice steady. This marriage, from start to finish, was never something I agreed to. My name was written on the marriage certificate, but I do not recognize it. You do not recognize it? She looked as though she had heard the joke of the century, turning to her maid with a laugh.
Did you hear that? She says she doesn't recognize it. Little girl, whether you recognize it or not doesn't actually matter. Once the Pei family decides on something, it is not for a little girl like you to change it at will.
I took a deep breath, suppressing the anger surging in my chest. Is that so? So, even if it means having your precious son marry a troublesome woman like me, is also the outcome you want? With that, I grabbed the teacup from the table and smashed it hard against the floor. With a loud crash, the harsh sound made everyone's heart skip a beat. The smile on Madam's face froze instantly, and the female relatives of the Pei family began to whisper.
This Hmong girl is far too ill-mannered. Indeed. A major event like marriage. How can anyone come to call it off themselves?
I heard she has been troublesome since she was a child.
I stood there, stared at by eyes from all directions. I did not offer an explanation. I turned around, picked up a vase, and smashed it hard onto the floor. Shards flew everywhere, and water splashed in all directions. A magnolia flower rolled to the madam's feet, covered in dust. The ladies who had been gossiping just now scattered in fright.
How insolent!
The madam slammed her hand on the table, and servants rushed forward to seize me. With trembling fingers, she pointed at me and cried,
You madwoman. Guards, grab her and...
Who dares touch me? I picked up a sharp porcelain shard and pressed it against my neck. The noblewoman had never seen such a scene before. After a round of screams, they shrank back into the corners. The servants also froze in their tracks, not daring to take another step forward. The hall fell so silent that only heavy breathing could be heard. If the Pei family drives an innocent young lady to her death, and word of this gets out, how do you think the magistrate will rule? And how will the censors impeach you? Since I dared to enter your doors today, I have naturally prepared for the worst. If I cannot walk out of here alive, I will make sure to drag the Pei family down with me. Master Pei lifted the curtain and rushed out. Aside from anger on his face, there was also a hint of panic.
You? How can a young lady like you be so fierce and shrewish? Are you not afraid?
Afraid of what? I stared at him, pronouncing every word clearly. Afraid that I will never get married? Or afraid of offending your grand Pei family? The porcelain shard pressed against my neck, painfully cold. My hands were shaking, but my voice remained perfectly steady. If you do not call off this engagement, go ahead and try me. I'll come back to smash up more of your property tomorrow. If tomorrow isn't enough, I'll come back the day after. The Pei family has plenty of fabric shops and storefronts. I will visit them one by one. The lady of the house covered her face and wept softly.
How did we end up encountering such a troublesome woman?
Master Pei's face turned ashen. His lips trembled for a long time. Finally, he spat out a sentence.
Good, good. What a fine daughter the Meng family has raised. We don't want this marriage anymore. If we are to annul it, then so be it.
She turned and went into the inner room, slamming the door with a loud bang. Looking at the mess all over the floor, I gradually lowered the shard of porcelain in my hand. At the moment I received the annulment document, my fingertips were still trembling, but I finally breathed a sigh of relief. The people of the Pei household escorted me out the gate. As if they were ridding themselves of a plague, I carefully folded the annulment document and put it in my robe. Just as we walked to the entrance, I suddenly remembered something. I turned around and smiled at the dark-faced lady of the house. By the way, madam, my arrogance and bossiness are my own business and have nothing to do with my two younger sisters. They are good daughters raised carefully by my mother and the concubine mother. Gentle and lovely, they also know how to manage a household. It is fine if you scold me, but do not lump the other daughters of the Meng family in with me. The lady of the house gave a cold snort, not wanting to pay me any mind at all. Only after I had walked far away did she suddenly snap back to her senses. The other daughters of the Meng family. She hastily turned around to look for Master Pei. I went back to my own room and finally had a good, long sleep. Little did I know that the front hall had already erupted into chaos. The lady of the house, leading a group of female relatives, came to our door to settle the score with my mother. My mother was still sipping her tea leisurely in the hall, but as soon as she saw them marching in aggressively, her legs went weak.
Ah Shu. Where is Ah Shu?
Mother's face was deathly pale, her lips trembling violently. She tightly grabbed my youngest sister's hand.
Ah Wu. Go find your sister, quickly. What should we do? They brought so many people.
My sister was trembling even harder than she was, yet her mind remained sharp.
Mother, how can we go look for sister now? The Pei family's sudden, furious decision to call off the engagement means sister must have already gone and made a scene. How could she possibly help us again?
These words were like a sudden clap of thunder, turning Mother's face even paler. Her eyes were filled with sheer panic.
What should I do? What on earth do we do then? If she refuses to help, if the PAs really come after us, who is going to shield us?
The madame did not give them much time to prepare and barged right in with her people. Amidst the increasingly loud arguments, Mother flushed with embarrassment and kept apologizing. She personally poured tea, apologizing to those ladies one by one. When others scolded her, she could only nod and smile along, desperately scolding and blaming me.
Please, rest assured, madame, I will definitely summon that rebellious daughter and teach her a proper lesson.
Mother repeatedly offered assurances from the side. The madame, however, stared at her for a long while before suddenly bursting into laughter.
You don't seem like someone with a temper, Madam Monk. How is it that when it comes to your daughter, you suddenly find your backbone?
With that, the female members of the Pei household burst into laughter together. My mother's face flushed with a mix of pale white and deep red, tears welling up and pooling in her eyes. Seeing that the time was ripe, the madame then cleared her throat.
All right. I won't make things too difficult for you. Since your eldest daughter caused such a scene, this marriage is naturally off.
Mother nodded repeatedly, still cursing me under her breath. The madam chuckled again.
But doesn't your family have two other young ladies?
As soon as those words fell, my sister's face turned pale. She looked at Mother in terror. Mother happened to look at her too. At that moment, both of them felt as if the sky was falling. The lady's gaze drifted back and forth between their faces, her smile growing even wider. Mother took a trembling step forward.
But my youngest daughter is truly untalented and virtue lacking. She is not worthy of the Pei family's third young master.
She indeed is not worthy.
The lady interrupted coldly, ignoring my sister's flushed face, and continued.
But this time, What we want is a concubine.
My little sister instantly collapsed to the ground, looking at mother in a daze, only after respectfully seeing the madam off at the manor gates. Only then, let out a weary sigh. But the moment she turned around, my little sister glared at her with eyes red with anger. She reached out, wanting to pat my sister's head, but for the first time, my sister dodged her hand.
Don't touch me.
My little sister took a few steps back, her eyes filled with despair.
What did you promise me? But what about now? Not only are you marrying me off to someone like Pei Feng,
And only as a concubine. At that, mother closed her eyes in heartbreak, tears slipping down silently. My sister was crying so hard she could barely breathe.
you only know how to bow and scrape in front of outsiders. You don't care about me at all. Right.
Ah Wu,
Mother's voice suddenly rose.
how can you act like your elder sister? You know very well that I simply cannot refuse them.
My younger sister is on the verge of a breakdown, her voice trembling uncontrollably.
But they clearly said that either I or Meng Shiran would do. Why did you have to force me to go? Just to please Auntie Song? And to please father? Is that why you could push me out like this?
Shut up.
Mother raises her hand high, her anger nearly boiling over. Yet, in the end, the slap does not fall. My younger sister kneels on the floor, sobbing so hard she can barely breathe.
Sister, I want to go find elder sister. I want her to save me.
But mother yanks her back with a jerk.
Ah Wu, wake up. Your elder sister won't help us anymore. She is the one who harmed you this time.
My younger sister looks at her blankly, shaking her head and muttering, no, she wouldn't. Disappointed by her weakness, mother pushes her away.
You silly girl. If your sister really cared about you, given her past temperament, she would never have let the PA family force you like this today.
Seeing her daughter crying in despair, she pauses for a moment, then pulls her up again.
But we indeed should go see her. I want to see what on earth she is trying to do.
Dragged along by mother, my sister moves forward, her steps stumbling and unsteady. Her lips quiver slightly, as if she wants to say something, but in the end, she just lowers her head and follows. When they arrive, I am tidying up my jewelry box. Those old hairpins and earrings were all part of mother's dowry back then, and also things I had snatched back, piece by piece, from Auntie Song's hands. Looking at them now, I only feel an unspeakable irony. Mother pushes the door open and enters, followed by my sister, whose eyes are swollen from crying. She speaks up immediately, accusing me of how I harmed my sister.
She said that the PA family now wants my sister to be a concubine, and scolded me for how I could be so cold-hearted.
She said a great deal, scolding me, begging me, and then resuming her scolding. I listened to it all, without interrupting, seeing that I remained silent throughout. Even mother grew tired of scolding. I still sat steadily, holding my tea. My little sister finally could not bear it anymore. She took a step forward and said hesitantly,
Sister.
As soon as I looked up, she burst into tears. Her eyes were red, looking like a little rabbit that had been severely bullied.
Sister, what should I do? Think of a way to save me. I don't want to be Pei Feng's concubine.
I looked at her and asked calmly, who said you were going to be his concubine? With anger in her tearful voice, she pointed her finger at mother.
It is mother. It is mother who wants me to be a concubine. She clearly could have let Meng Shiran go, but she didn't dare.
Mother's face turned pale, and she looked at her with disappointment.
Ah Wu, even you blame mother like this. I truly raised you all in vain.
Then, she turned her head to glare at me.
Look. Now even Ah Wu has learned from you to defy me. You started all of this. Are you satisfied now?
I didn't even bother to spare her a glance. Her anger hung awkwardly in the air. I pushed my sister's hand away and said softly, Ah Wu, didn't you say you would listen to mother's arrangements in everything? You shouldn't have come to find me. My sister's crying stopped abruptly, and a look of despair, unlike anything before, appeared on her face. I knew these few words were like knives, stabbing into her heart one after another. Her lips trembled, and her tears fell uncontrollably.
Sister, you are blaming me, right?
I did not look at her, only casually spinning the prayer beads in my hand. She stumbled back a step, looking at me in despair, because she remembered last time she had treated me the exact same way. The anger on mother's face turned into confusion, and then into an indescribable complexity. Looking at her, I suddenly felt as if she had aged 10 years in an instant. She finally spoke, but you cannot leave Ah Wu to fend for herself. Her voice losing its confidence.
Go talk to the PA family again. Go admit your mistake. Maybe.
I slammed my teacup back down on the table, and mother's words got caught in her throat. I looked at her, with no warmth left in my eyes. Listen to yourself. Are those the words of a decent person? Mother's face flushed red with anger, her chest heaving. She reached out, wanting to slap me again. This time, I did not indulge her anymore. Taking a step forward, I firmly grabbed her wrist. I used force, and her wrist quickly turned red under my grip. She struggled with both hands for a long time, before realizing I wouldn't budge an inch. Mother stared at me blankly and suddenly burst into tears.
Ah Shu, you.
I flung her hand away, and she weakly stumbled back a few steps, supporting herself against the tea table. Bottles and jars shattered all over the floor, sounding incredibly harsh at this moment. Mother, I am no longer the Ame of the past. You know this well in your heart. Her back was hunched, like a piece of wood, about to rot away, gazing blankly into space. Neither my sister nor I spoke another word. Her tears just kept falling, splashing onto the floor one by one. Just then, a servant suddenly ran in to report, "Madam, the eldest young master of the Pei family has arrived." The atmosphere in the manor instantly tensed up. Why would he come to our door in person? The Pei family's current power and influence depended entirely on his highly sought-after, brilliant prospects. If he came in person to demand accountability, then the Hmong manor would be in real trouble. Seeing that none of us looked well, the servant realized the situation and quickly added,
The eldest young master of the Pei family is here to propose marriage.
"Propose marriage?" The three of us raised our voices almost at the same time. When the Pei family first came to propose marriage on behalf of Pei Feng, they hadn't even seen him show his face. Originally, the Pei family was merely borrowing his influence. He had always disdained such matters, so it was only normal that he did not come. But this time, it was merely Pei Feng taking a concubine. Why would it bring him here in person?
The eldest young master of the Pei family said that their family had caused much offense previously. This time, he is not proposing marriage on behalf of the third young master. It is the eldest young master himself who wishes to marry the young lady.
As soon as she finished speaking, Mother looked as if she had been brought back to life by a breath of divine air. She excitedly grabbed the servant and pressed for answers.
Why would the eldest young master of the Pei family suddenly propose marriage? Does he know our young lady? Is it as a formal wife or as a concubine? Actually, even being a concubine is not out of the question.
The servant let out a bitter smile. How could he possibly know so much? My younger sister was in a daze, her face bearing the expression of someone struck by sudden pleasant surprise. A gentle blush gradually crept onto her cheeks. Mother quickly grabbed her hand and led her outside.
Ah Wu, this is wonderful. You really have lived up to expectations. If the eldest young master of the Pei family has taken a liking to you, it truly is a blessing from our ancestors. All these years, Mother has been praying to the Bodhisattva, and it truly was not in vain.
After saying this, as if remembering something, she looked back at me.
Last time you said the one who helped me was you, not the Bodhisattva. It is you. Such disrespectful words toward the gods and Buddhas. Remember to repent properly before the Buddha in the future. Ah Wu was able to climb to such heights because externally she has a reputation for filial piety and virtue, and internally she truly respects her mother's moral character. Ah Shu, no matter how capable you are ultimately still just a daughter. Over these years, you indeed have contributed a lot.
At this point, she let out a sigh, as if she couldn't bear to see me go down the wrong path.
But look at these past days. What exactly have you been doing? Do you think that just because you have merits, you can disobey your parents like this? You are throwing away your own blessings. The Bodhisattva will punish you.
After speaking, she raised her head, smoothed her clothes, and took my shy younger sister to the front hall to receive the guests. I looked at the mess all over the floor, and then at the tender green new leaves outside the window. Mother's words did not stir the slightest ripple in my heart. If there truly were gods measuring fairness in the world, they would not fail to see the hardships I endured and the kindness I maintained. As for him, what of his bright and promising future? My future was never meant to be pinned on relying on a husband. I put away the string of beads in my hand, yet a figure surfaced in my mind. After a moment's thought, I still set off for the front hall. Just as we walked to the entrance, I saw Mother eagerly attending to the guests. My younger sister walked forward carrying tea, her fingertips trembling slightly, her face flushed all the way to her ears. She lowered her head, gently placing the teacup on the table, her voice so soft it was barely audible. "Please enjoy your tea, Lord Pei." He gave a slight nod, his gaze lingering on her face for less than a second. Before turning away, he scanned the room, looking somewhat distracted.
I heard your eldest daughter has returned to the manor. Is she still angry with the Pei family, unwilling to come out and meet me?
Mother rose from the main seat, apologizing out of habit.
How could you say that, Lord Pei? That girl has a stubborn temper and knows nothing of etiquette. Don't pay her any mind. I have taken great pains to discipline her, yet I didn't expect her to still dare to offend our noble guests. Fortunately, a Wu is well behaved and sensible. She has always given me the least worry.
My younger sister bowed her head at just the right moment, her cheeks blushing as red as ripe fruit, but he laughed heartily.
You speak too harshly, madam. It was my PA family that failed in our etiquette this time, which angered your eldest daughter. It is only natural for her to be angry. Moreover, I actually feel that your eldest daughter's temperament, being daring in thought and action, is candid and lovely.
Stunned by his sharp retort, Mother looked rather embarrassed. She could only offer an awkward smile and invite him to drink his tea. I let out a soft chuckle from outside the door. His hearing was incredibly sharp, and he immediately turned his head to look at me. I had no choice but to step forward to greet the guests. The moment our eyes met, my heart skipped another beat. It was him. He bowed to me in a perfectly proper manner, and then his gaze fixed firmly upon me. Mother's expression changed slightly, and she couldn't help but cough. Only then did he seem to come to his senses, and he bowed to her once more.
First, I apologize for the rudeness of my elders a few days ago.
Furthermore, he looked at me. His gaze was gentle yet firm.
I truly wish to ask for the hand of the eldest daughter of this household. I am willing to seek this union with the traditional 3 letters and 6 rights, along with the honor of my entire clan. I am also willing to respect her and protect her for the rest of my life.
My younger sister's hand shook as she held her tea, causing the teacup to clatter sharply against the saucer. Before the blush on her face could fully fade, it was swallowed up inch by a deadly paleness. Mother could barely keep her footing, swaying as she stood up. Unwilling to accept this, she asked once more.
What you mean, young master, is the one you wish to marry is...
It is Ah Shu.
He looked up, his tone resolute.
And it will only ever be Ah Shu.
Mother took a few steps back, nearly losing her balance. She looked at me with an incredibly complex look in her eyes. The Bodhisattva had answered the prayer, but the one blessed was not the one she had intended. I looked at him. He was indeed the man I had run into on the street that day. I had to admit, every time I met him, my heart would race wildly, but that did not mean I would definitely agree. Young Master Pei, your visit today is indeed very sudden, but have you never considered, what if I am unwilling? He looked at me without a single trace of annoyance in his eyes.
If you are unwilling, my lady, I naturally will not force you.
He looked at me with a touch of admiration, his eyes gentle and bright.
You are like the bright moon in the sky. Even if you think little of me, how could that be surprising?
His eyes held only me, as if everyone else in the room had become mere background decoration. Mother and my sister looked on as if they were witnessing a miracle. They had never seen anyone praise me in such a way. He spoke solemnly.
After meeting you that day, I originally intended for us to get to know each other gradually, and only propose after I was sure of your feelings. It is only that there have been too many matters of late, and I did not expect that my family would cause such an incident with you, my lady, fearing that any further delay would bring more complications. I could only come first to show my sincerity. Even if you refuse me, my lady, I still wanted to be brave this once.
I was stunned, not expecting such an explanation. I had thought he was like the others, believing that since he had a bright future, he could just come to propose marriage, regardless of whether I was willing or not. But facing someone who spoke so softly and gently, and who considered my feelings in every way, I actually felt a bit at a loss. Standing there, for a moment, I could neither step forward nor step back. His eyes looked at me without wavering, and the corners of his mouth suddenly curved up slightly, as if he had suddenly solved a difficult riddle. Afterwards, his already gentle eyes softened even more, even carrying a hint of pitifulness.
I have a dull personality, which surely does not please you, my lady. My mother also passed away early, and living under my stepmother since childhood. My life has not been very pleasant. I have always wanted a real home, but no one has ever truly cared for me. Oh.
With him putting it this way, I did indeed feel a bit of sympathy. It turned out he was just like me, having a family, yet not feeling like he had one. How pitiful. To reject him like this seemed a bit heartless, but I failed to see the slight curve that touched the corner of his mouth. He looked at me leisurely again, his tone growing even more pitiful.
Most of my relatives only wish to take advantage of my influence. Few people treat me with any sincerity. I only wish to have someone to share my heart with, someone to grow old with and never part.
My little sister listened with tears in her eyes. She slowly stepped forward and looked at him with sincere emotion.
Lord Pei, I do.
He looked at her in astonishment, not understanding at all why she suddenly interrupted. Even his servant looked at her with a hint of disdain. Mother quickly pulled my emotional sister back and smilingly gestured for us to continue talking. I let out a soft sigh. Then, there is no rush to settle the marriage. Let's get to know each other first. His eyes suddenly lit up. He nodded quickly, as if afraid I would go back on my word. I was a bit taken aback. Mother looked at me, her gaze complex and hard to read. From then on, he often asked me out. Sometimes we went to see flower lanterns, sometimes to play polo. He would also take me to pick out various jewelry and trinkets, or accompany me in planting flowers and tending plants. Only then did I discover that his knowledge was vast. It seemed there was nothing in the world he didn't know. He could always sense my emotions and always soothe my heart. But he wasn't free all the time. Before he had even officially taken office, all kinds of officials were already scrambling to make his acquaintance. When he was free, he would take me around. If he really couldn't decline a banquet, he would bring me along with him. I used these opportunities to meet many people, making my own rouge shop larger and larger. The rouge shop was something I had quietly set up after father stopped treating my mother and me so harshly. Since mother had always forbidden me from acquiring private property, she was completely unaware of this. All of this was witnessed by him. I thought he would be displeased, and even thought of embroidering a mandarin duck pouch to coax him, but he actually went out of his way to introduce me to connections. When he spoke up, it was far more effective than me wasting my breath trying to convince people. I felt a wave of emotion in my heart. I thought, you would feel that doing business is beneath your dignity. I looked at him as he peeled grapes for me, feeling a bit dazed. He smiled slightly, his voice very soft.
Indeed, a little bit.
My heart sank. As expected, highly educated scholars always have rather stubborn ideas. Yet he smiled again, holding a grape to my lips.
But the things you love are far more important than my dignity.
My heart trembled slightly, and a sudden warmth rushed through me. Pei Zhao, tell me the truth. When exactly did you start liking me? Suddenly struck by inspiration, I grabbed his hand and asked, stop trying to fool me with that sob story about how no one loved you. I want the truth. He smiled helplessly, his eyes filled with indulgence.
You're only just asking now.
I was a bit bewildered. He patted my head, his tone carrying a hint of jealousy.
You truly don't remember me at all. Do you still remember the street where we met and what I said to you? Such a strong spine should not be used to suffer in silence.
I nodded. Of course I remember. He had opened my eyes that day, which also indirectly helped me stand up to mother and the others. He gently stroked my head.
Ah Shu, those words, you once said them to me too.
My memory felt as if it had been split open by a bolt of lightning. So we had met. We had already met. His mother passed away early, and his father had no time to look after him. He had once watched his stepmother's son Pei Feng with his own eyes, abuse his pet puppy with his own eyes. It was a young me who grabbed a filthy stick, scared Pei Feng so much that he ran away in panic. It was the first time he had ever seen someone so fierce, and the first time in his heart found the strength to resist. He gently embraced me, as if trying to pull me into his very soul. Ah Shu, do you know? You are like the wild grass that grew in my heart.
Vibrant and full of life. I thought to myself countless times how lucky I would be, how incredibly lucky I would be.
He was as soft as a well-behaved, gentle dog, resting his head on my shoulder, acting spoiled. So be it. I just happened to have a weak spot for this. I let out a soft laugh. All of my doubts had been answered. I think it is time. On the day of my wedding, mother and my younger sister wept bitterly. I believe their reluctance to let me go was real, because from now on, there would be no one left to shield them from Concubine Song and father. Once Concubine Song learned that mother and I had completely fallen out, she began to whisper exaggerations into father's ear. After his return, mother's authority to manage the household was stripped away once again. Under Aunt Song's intentional harshness, the main courtyard went back to days of shortages in everything. Because Third Young Master Pei feared me, he never dared mention taking a Hmong family daughter as a concubine again. So, my younger sister was temporarily unable to marry out, and could only continue to suffer alongside mother. Once, during a fierce argument, she even said to mother, "Suffer with you like this, I might as well become the Third Young Master Pei's concubine. At least my sister is now the young mistress of the Pei estate, and the Pei family wouldn't dare bully me so easily." Mother was so furious that she remained bedridden for a long time. Only this time, there was no longer anyone to search everywhere for medicine for her. Because of him, father prepared a generous dowry for me, and even Aunt Song, when she saw me, would nod politely. Aunt Song's methods were relentless. When mother came to me for help several several times later, I always replied to her like this: "You really ought to change. You can't keep rushing to the front for everything. It is fine. Once you suffer grievances a few more times, your skin will grow thick. I cannot go against my conscience anymore. The Bodhisattva is watching." Mother lay in despair on the wooden bed, weeping softly all by herself. Our first child was a daughter. He adored her to pieces, holding her in his arms all day, refusing to let go. When my younger sister came to visit, she stared at my daughter, lost in thought.
Sister, others say that only when you become a parent yourself will you understand your parents' hearts. You now have your own child.
I lay on the chair, basking in the sun. Beside me was the sound of my husband gently patting and soothing our daughter. Under the willow tree, the cat I raised was chasing butterflies. I am truly very happy. Only after becoming a mother myself do I understand even more clearly how poorly she treated me back then. But even without that love, I can still grow freely toward the sunlight.